Hello, welcome to Orphan Espresso. I'm Doug.
I'm Barb.
This is Pharos Hand Grinder Technical Bulletin 1, 2, and 3. Number 1 is how to install the lower funnel for those who don't have it. Number 2 is addressing a small modification that we've made to the machine. And number 3 is a little tweak that I'll explain when we get to it. Now, this is what we consider to be the final form of the Pharos. We don't consider any changes to be made. We have the popper stopper, the bean ring, which everyone has. This is the changeover from the small breaker bar pin to the long pin, which I personally prefer. It's easier to use, but it doesn't store on the machine up from 001 to number 30. It doesn't store on the machine, and all of a sudden it occurred to me, and Barb agreed, that drill a couple of holes and it's self-storing. And so that's something that we'll address, but this is the final form. We have an internal funnel that looks like this. The internal funnel mounts through in the bottom hopper cork, and so I first want to go over the method for the Pharos 9. That would be number 1 through number 9 of how to most simply install the funnel. Now, this is what you got, number 1 to 9. You got a new bottom cylinder sleeve, which has no hole. You got a funnel, and you got 3 standoffs to use on this bottom level, because your standoffs, your bolt covers will be the wrong size. So this is your kit. Now, to undertake this procedure, we first remove the bottom plate. So I'm just take off my handle. The early adopters, extreme early adopters of this, get all the goodies, because what you got, alright, to do this, I seldom, if ever these days, I don't use a wrench on that nut anymore. I just use a hex key, and this is a 6mm, and I use it on the top bolt here to loosen, just to get it loose, and it's just almost finger tight. And when you do assembly, I did.
That's mine.
Well, this is yours, but you let me use it, right?
Well,
once
yeah.
again, a 6mm, very low torque setting. Okay, what you will have when you remove your original, which has the side hole, if you take out the end bolts, now you have a work stand. Very, very handy Pharos work stand, just like this. Pretty slick, huh? So not only do you have the new funnel, but you have your own work stand. These bolt covers, you can either, now these, your originals, get rid of them, because don't confuse things. The originals are a different length than the ones that we sent you. So you take your originals and just
throw them away.
Throw them away. Just get rid of them. Do something with them. This has already been converted, but your originals, they don't count. Okay? So we'll leave those there. Now, you've got your bottom plate. Alright? This has already been converted, but you won't have this hole. Okay? Now, included with your materials is this little jig, and you line this up to your center bearing, and that is your bolt. This is one of your assembly bolts. Basically, it goes through like this. Okay, you just use that card that we sent you. Wow, you really made that card tight. Look at that.
I use good cardstock.
You use good cardstock. I can't even get it off. Okay, so You lay it out. The spot is your center. The hole is 7/8 inch or 22.5 millimeters. It can, of course, be larger, depending on the size of your drill. To cut these, I just used a hole saw. You do your center punch, drill press, hand drill. The aluminum is very easy to cut, but that's where you make your hole. Okay? Once you've done that, you just reinstall it. Reinstall the plate. Now, it's just like, you know, you go in for surgery. The doctor says, well, while I've got you open, I'll just do a few more things while I'm in there. And so, while I've got you here, let's talk about something that has occurred to me in assembling these. Our original design of the holes in these plates was extremely tight tolerances. That these small bolts that go through and hold the burr, they're 6 millimeter bolts. We had the holes made exactly 6 millimeters, very tight. These 8 millimeter holes, 8 millimeter bolts. Our idea was that this extremely rigid frame would hold the entire mechanism. But as it turns out, the rigidity of the mechanism is provided by the central cylinder. The high tolerances on these holes actually can be a deterrent to assembly. It makes it a little bit difficult and a little bit tweaky on some of the earlier machines. And so this is what I recommend for technical bulletin number 3. This would be, now that you've got the bottom off, these are your bolt holes. These are the holes that the cylinder pegs fit into. Now I have found that instead of 6 on those cylinder pegs, 6.5 or so is much more amenable to simple installation. Now, this is what I'd recommend to do. You don't have to do it, but if you find that you're having any kind of difficulties assembling, if it's binding up, any of the bolts are binding, or you find that this is a little bit, if you have to push it into place or snap it into place, is to enlarge these 2 holes. These are the cylinder peg holes, just like that. You see, this is a very nice fit. There's not a real big problem with this one. But what you can do is you take either a round file and just make them a little bigger, especially if it's binding up in some way. If it's not binding up, don't bother. But if you're finding any binding, you make these holes a little bigger with your file. This is really a nice tool. This is an aluminum or plastic deburring tool that machine shops use. It's made by Noga, an Israeli company. And they make really a lot of fine hand tools that go for machinists. And this is another tool you can use if you have one or pick one up. It is a really wonderful tool. You can get in and just enlarge those holes a little bit. As I said, if you have any questions about this thing binding up, or if you're trying to tune the bolts, or if you're having a problem with alignment, just enlarge these holes. What I ended up doing, this is a 1/4 inch drill bit, which is 1/4 inch, 6.35 millimeters, but I just take this, and I did this to all of the current grinders, and you just come through here, low torque, get some high torque here. I just come here through here and just enlarge them like that. As it turns out, these tight tolerances. You said this was yours?
Yes.
These tight tolerances.
Be nice to my power tools.
Yeah, these tight tolerances, as it turns out, you know, not so critical. And as I said, on some of the grinders, they actually make it a bit difficult to assemble. Okay, I just cleaned those out. I really like that tool. Now, these are the bolt holes. And I have gone ahead and once again made those a little bigger, just because it makes life easier. And hand tools, or whatever you have, that this is an 11/64, 8.334. So you don't have to make them too much bigger. But, you know, this Makita bit. Yeah, let me fly it off. I just might use this. You don't have to make them too much bigger, you just go around it. Oh, I might just use my hand tool. This is bogus. Well, anyway, I'm using my hand tool. That's jamming up on me. Anyway, this is actually my favorite tool, because it just comes off like in ribbons. But, you know, as I said, you're not talking about making them that much bigger. And you could use a round file as well. This is the one that I put that burr in. But it's just kind of a nice little tweak for assembly. Now, once again, I would do the same thing to this plate. I'm not having any problems with this. It was just a demo. Let me go ahead and ease those out a little bit just to show you. You can do this on the grinder. It's just real simple to do. Okay, now I'll just go ahead and assemble this just to show you. Especially when you've got your stand, it's so simple that we'll take your new bolt covers that you got. Remember, your old ones are not even inside anymore. We take our sleeve, our bottom cylinder just drops right in the holes, especially since you made them bigger. Bingo, they go in. Now you come in with your funnel, and you kind of have to figure out where it goes. It goes this way. You've made the hole and deburred it if you're particular. On it goes. You just push the things right up there with those bigger holes. You don't really have any binding. The entire frame is real free to move. Where's my other bolt? See how that pushes up just really nice, and it keeps everything in just really a nice loose alignment. Because now if you have taken it all down and you're going to do a complete realignment here, you'll know that the first thing that you do, we haven't touched these top bolts. That's in the instructions on how to deal with that. And once again, it's really not difficult. You know, and I have talked about making sure the frame is loose, but when you've enlarged these holes, everything's just nice and free. The springs have pushed the gap open so that burr's floating. Okay. Now we come down. I tighten this all the way to align the outer burr. It pulls the outer burr into the center of the into the inner burr. And I like to hit it one more time. I like to hit it one more time under those circumstances. And then part of the secret is, and the Pharos 9, 001 to 9, remember, keep your top ones separate. Keep your top bolt covers separate because they're a slightly different length. And Barb's giving me the finger, but I think we have more time on YouTube than we used to, being good customers. So I'm just going to go ahead and act like we do have time to do this. I set this way down on torque number 2. It's just, and all you have to do is tighten these enough so these bolt covers are snug. You see how that works? Just so they're snug. And if you're using this type of wrench, you really don't need a lot of torque. You just hold that nut with your finger and you turn this until there's no more wiggle in these, just so the looseness goes away. We've got the the system, the link, see, that was just not very much at all, but it's enough to compress the burr. It's enough to set the alignment, and I just go through and make sure they're all basically the same. See? Nice spin at a low thing. All right, and then I would put the handle on. The last thing that I want to talk about is the simple way to, if you want to be self-storing for your big pin, see, it stores right down there in the foot, just like the little pin did. That simplest way to do this is to take the whole thing apart. And so you'll have 3 plates, right? You'll have your top plate, your center plate, and your bottom plate. And you line up the large bolt holes. There's the large bolt holes there. These have already been drilled because we're doing all of the machines this way. You line up your 3 bolt holes. You use your large bolts as an alignment tool. You see. Now, if you want to make those, if you want to self-store the pin, this on the bottom, that would be the foot. That would be the rubber foot that corresponds here. There's a hole and foot. That's the foot hole. That would be where the foot is. And as you can see, you line up the other 2 plates, you get them, you center punch, and you can just drill them both at the same time, or have them drilled at the same time if you want to add this little modification for self-storage of the pin. I hope that covers it. It's just straightforward marking, aligning, marking, and drilling. I do recommend that you enlarge the holes that if you're having any kind of issues at all, and that should pretty much cover your Pharos installation of the funnel, and any assembly problems that you have will be solved by freeing up the frame a little bit by making those holes bigger. I hope this is helpful.